Away from James Harden and the Rockets visiting the Nuggets. Harden scored at least 30 in 24 straight games. That never gets old saying that. Welcome inside our LA NBA studio with Paul, Jalen, and Michael. I'm Michelle. Thoughts on what we just saw, but more specifically, Kyrie Irving in his interview saying that it's basically all a distraction at this point as far as the Knicks and the trades and what's going to happen.
Who caused that distraction?
He did.
Shoot around this morning.
Self-inflicted wounds.
Yes. That was easy to avoid. That was it. Come on. A guy is, one thing, I love talking to Kyrie Irving, listening to him. He's an engaged, smart guy. And he's engaged and smart enough to know that wasn't the way to go about this. You could have just easily sidestepped that or turned it into whatever you wanted to turn it into that wasn't a distraction. And so now they've got one.
And now it's here.
He knew he was playing in New York tonight. He's trolling New York. We all know he's signing back with Boston.
We don't know that.
This is far, like he said, this is just a distraction. Kyrie is playing chess with everybody while y'all are playing checkers.
I disagree, Paul Pierce, Hall of Famer, that has his number hanging in the rafters,
Celtics.
that bleeds green. I know you don't like the thought of Kyrie Irving leaving, but the way he played on the floor and then the way he performed post-game, finishing a lot of games, okay, you understand the magnitude of people are watching. And so the embrace of his dad was terrific. It was awesome. But to me, that was almost like wanting to egg the fans on, wanting to get the cheers, wanting them
Really? Extending the time in
No,
front?
he extended the time. He stayed out on the floor.
We're reading into this too much.
That's what we
I don't
do,
think
Paul.
so.
It's
We're
our
reading
job.
into this too much.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Paul doesn't get what we do up here.
He said that at the beginning of the season he wanted to be there. Now you put a camera in front of his face and a microphone, he's not saying that anymore.
I'm torn, actually, between these 2 points. I just want to say this. Having covered a lot of Celtics teams and a lot of Celtics in games over the decades, he's a Celtic. He acts like a Celtic all the time. In the green room watching the game, Paul Pierce is a Celtic. I watched this, and I don't know that this is a Celtic. You know what I mean? I mean, being around Kevin McHale, even in now Kevin and I are 60 years old, he's a Celtic through and through and through. And there's a certain behavior that's established that all these guys that I've ever met and known, I think you feel this way too.
I do.
They conform to that. It's who they are.
Yes.
Can I ask you this, though?
I look at this, and I'm like,
Can I ask you this, though? Is that a sign of the times, though? That
That
the
is a
loyalty
sign
is
of the
not
times.
the same
Maybe.
as what it
That
once
is a
was?
sign of the times.
That's a legit
though.
question.
That is a legit question. It is a sign of the times. There's no loyalty in sports anymore. Guys come, they get drafted, they get promised things, they get traded. They say they want to stay somewhere, they go somewhere else. That's just a sign of the times. I mean, we don't know what Kyrie is going to do. I mean, at the beginning he said, I will be here, I'll re-sign with the Celtics, but players change their minds just like coaches and GMs change their minds about the players they re-sign, saying you're going to be here for life. Halfway through the year, a la Blake Griffin gets traded after re-signing a big contract. Same with DeRozan. So there's no loyalty in sports. So who knows what Kyrie is going to do. I want him to be a Celtic, of course, for selfish reasons, but who knows?
I think when a team makes it to the Eastern Conference Finals without you, and then you return and you're taking the lion's share of the shots and the ball handling responsibilities, and now it's become about his free agency, guys have to resent it in some sort of way. That's just how it works. You don't think Rozier and Brown want to be starters? They definitely do.
They've been.
And they liked it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, based on that, and then Kyrie coming out publicly multiple times talking about how these young guys don't know what it takes, that, to me, is a sign that he's not truly happy playing alongside of the people that are now 5th seed in the East.
Maybe it's not about happiness, and me and Mike was talking about this earlier. Kyrie finally had a chance to go to a team and be a leader. He was second fiddle to LeBron. He's tasted that leadership role. Now he goes to New York, or goes to L.A. with LeBron again. He goes to New York with Anthony Davis again. He's no longer considered a leader. So what does that say about Kyrie? Does he not want to be a leader? I think he does. That's the reason he is in a Celtic uniform and wants to lead a team himself to a final, something he couldn't do on the side of LeBron. And we all know it'll be Anthony Davis will be that team if he goes to New York, or if they both go to New York, or if he teams up with him anywhere.
I'm glad you didn't mention if Anthony Davis goes to Boston, because that leads us to the following quote. Anthony Davis's father telling Ramona Shelburne earlier today this, quote, "I would never want my son to play for Boston.
Ouch.
After what they done to Isaiah Thomas. No loyalty.
Ouch.
Guy gives his heart and soul, and they traded him. Anyone can print that." It's always, how do you guys feel when a parent comes out? What do you think? How do you feel about this?
Like me personally, I wouldn't like that. I'm a
As
man.
far as
I'm a
being
man.
Anthony
I'm just a man myself, and I don't need nobody to speak for me.
Okay.
You know, I mean, this is a new time, and parents got a voice, and they want to speak for their kids. I mean, I wouldn't allow that. Like, I'll be on the phone with moms, like, come on, moms, let me handle this. I'm a grown man.
What
Let
if
me
Prince
talk
does
about my
something
future.
crazy and then you
Let
have
me
to
talk about my future.
Hey, Truth, I think this is calculated. I think this is bully ball. This is Godfather-ish, Michael Wilbon. Somebody in New Orleans may wake up with a horse head in the bed.
Wow.
Okay? Like, Rich comes out and makes his statement. Anthony gets on the camera today, and Dad makes comments this evening.
Power move at his
Tilt to the
finest.
board west.
Correct.
You know what I feel bad for right now? Anthony Davis and I are from the same hometown.
Chi-town.
I root for him. We're Chicagoans. I do. I root for him individually, no matter where he goes.
Right.
I'm looking at him, and he's another. He's engaged, upbeat. Have you ever heard anybody say anything negative about Anthony Davis the entire time in the league or at Kentucky? I haven't.
Nope.
I look at him today and tonight, and I'm just thinking I'm looking at a young guy that maybe doesn't feel all that great about the way this is progressing publicly. There's nothing to suggest that this is who he has been or is. And now he's caught. I mean, there's a situation where his agent, who, let's face it, is also acting in the best interest of his primary client and himself. And he's got his dad coming out saying, Paul, I agree with you. That's hard, man. You want to pick up the phone and say, yo, Pops, what are you doing? Come on, I love you, but you can't do this. And we've had other guys do this.
Right.
But, man, you hear Anthony Davis. I saw Anthony Davis in those remarks, and I just saw a guy who's maybe a little or maybe even very uncomfortable with the way this is all going down.
They sound like they're trying to get traded between now and the deadline. That's what this seems like to me. They're trying to put the pressure on them.
All right, let's move on. It's going to be an interesting less than a week to go. Nikola Jokic, his first All-Star team. He was named last night after 6 triple-doubles in January with an All-Star matchup with Harden and the Rockets coming up in minutes. That list, quite a few people, including Jazz center Rudy Gobert, who, according to our Bobby Marks, would have earned a $1 million bonus had he been selected. He was visibly distraught about the snub this
Defense
morning.
wins championships, not all-stars.
My mom called me crying. It was tough, but it is what it is. Yeah, it's always going to be that way. I saw you.
So obviously we live in a world where that reaches social media, and then there's a reaction. 2 Warriors, Draymond and Iggy, both criticizing the Jazz center. In fairness, Gobert is 4th in the league in blocks, 5th in rebounds. But let me ask you this. I would have to imagine, and maybe they don't care, that they didn't hear the entire context of the emotion, and maybe that tweet wouldn't have gone out, or they probably didn't care either way. It's just the crying.
I think that we live in a society where men sometimes aren't allowed to show emotion. And when it happens, it makes other people feel like they're not being strong. It makes other people feel like they're not being tough. And he cares about this game. And for me, as a guy that watches him perform on a nightly basis, I appreciate the fact that he cares so much about a meaningless game. It ain't about the $1 million. He wants to be amongst his peers and looked at as an elite.
No, but I'm
And his
saying,
mom
hold
was
on.
upset.
He would have got $1 million if he made the All-Star team. That was about the money. Come on now. Come on now. Let's be real.
Hold on.
Come on now. He's not mad about the All-Star. That was about that extra. That was about that extra milli. That's what he was
Really?
crying about.
Come on.
Come on.
We sat and did this. You and I did this the other day. We came out with a bunch of people in the West that you wanted to have on the All-Star team. And I'm sure coaches found it just as difficult.
Yes.
And they couldn't go. He has a teammate
Think about this.
who deserves to be on the All-Star team too and is not.
Neither one.
If we go by what we said, pick the best. What is our motto?
Forget East and
East and
West.
West.
Vote
Forget East
for
and
the
West,
best.
vote for the best.
I got you.
You have Donovan Mitchell in that game instead of a Russell. You know what I'm saying? You'll have guys who probably are more deserving in that game. So I just say let's go away from the East-West concept of picking.
You think Utah will do something having seen this? Because I think that reaction must have played well in the whole state, right? I mean, is that the kind of team, kind of club, franchise that'll cut them off something? And say, look, we know you may not have earned $1 million. That just happened.
No, but can I say this? Because obviously American men are not allowed to show emotion, and he is obviously not an American man where you are allowed to embrace your emotion, you're allowed to be in touch with your feelings. I know I'm getting a little hokey here, and then he started to talk about his mom, and I would imagine the conversation with his mom on the phone was also highly emotional, and, you know, I hope Iggy and Draymond saw that and thought, oh, man, maybe it wasn't something to make fun of.
But it's always a tough juggle between stats and winning. That's always the balance when you're trying to choose the All-Star team.
I had $1 million on the line.
God, come on.
He'll be fine. Right there.
Best
he should be in.
Players.
He should be in. Yes or no?
He should be an All-Star. But that's why Utah ought to cut him off. The Jazz ought to break him off something. Can you give him $250?
Oh, my God.
No. Did he have enough? Is he? Do we agree he's having an all-star?
Yes.
Yes, I think. Yes. Just off the top of my head, I think the West should have had 14 players and the East should have had 10.
Yep. Good. Yeah. We all agree. All right, make it happen. Oh, just kidding. I wish it was that easy.
Get East and West. Vote for the best.
He was back at work though. He did have some work to do tonight. Hawks taking on Gobert and the Jazz.
I want to see the response.
In the first quarter, Jazz leading by 5.
We bully somebody.
That's what I'm talking about.
Here's your response.
Yes.
Oh, and one.
Uh-oh. Later in the first, Hawks down 6. Trae Young.
Trae Young getting hot.
No, say it ain't so. Trae Young.
I'm with you, Trae.
He's a wagers MVP. Less than a minute remaining. Ingles to Crowder. Wide open 3. That one is close. Hawks barely up. Heading in to halftime. Grizzlies, Hornets, fourth quarter. We're talking about this guy, Tony Parker to Malik Monk.
Malik Monk has bounced. Looking like Ja Morant.
Tony Parker look like he can give you a few more years.
It look like he can help somebody who's in a playoff situation right now.
Years.
Yeah.
Later on in the 4, tied at 90 apiece, Kemba Walker finds Marvin Williams, buries the 3.
Charlotte, enjoy Kemba while you can.
Why you gotta be like that?
Enjoy Kemba while you can.
Why you gotta be like that? Time to go courtside for Rockets, Nuggets. 2 games against the Nuggets. Harden's playing distributor a little more, averaging only 27, but over 12 assists a game. Do you expect the same sort of attack tonight?
I do. And the thing that's great about James Harden as you look at his statistics is that people don't give him credit for his durability. It's one thing to get to the free throw line. It's another thing to take the physical pounding driving to the basket. And for him to continue to be able to do that while making three-point shots has truly been outstanding.
Jokic. We mentioned the 6 triple-doubles in the month of January. But if you need to be reminded, it's the most since Wilt by a 7-footer. Would you rather have him or Harden as your focal point in your offense?
Come on now. James Harden or Jokic, he hasn't arrived yet. He's just now jumping on the scene. James Harden's been on the scene. Let's show some respect to the beard. Everybody's like these new toys they get, but they forgot the old toys.
Some new toys
been popping. Joker, he's on his way, but he's no Harden. I'm starting off with Harden, but hey, he's having a great year. All-star, well-deserving, and Denver could be in the Western Conference Finals.
Here we go. We're going to start naming all the West teams. Third game back for Mr. Chris Paul. What do you need to see from him tonight as far as getting back together with Harden?
Just continuing to knock the rust off. Look, somebody asked me recently whether I would take James Harden or I'm not sure who the other player was. Maybe it was Antetokounmpo. And I said, if you can promise me that Chris Paul is going to be healthy throughout the playoffs, I'll take James Harden. James Harden is the best player on that team. There's no question. Chris Paul is the most important player on that team and the clutch player on that team. And that's why when he went down last year, they could not finish off that series with Golden State because Chris Paul wasn't out.
Paul's favorite guy, Will Barton.
Player,
he started the last 4 with no Jamal Murray. What does he bring that was missing when he was gone?
We love Will Barton, and we talk a lot about him when we're watching the games because he plays unorthodox. He's herky-jerky, and or as we like to call it, respectfully, janky. And the thing about him, he's a fearless player. He continues to attack regardless of the situation. Now that he's back healthy, he's a major X factor.
You'd have in the starting lineup, would you not?
Absolutely.
Paul, how about Kenneth Reed? 3 double-doubles in his last 3 games. Are you surprised?
I'm very surprised because I haven't had a chance to see him. He was on the bench. But, you know, he's delivered. I mean, he's bringing them everything they asked for, energy, defense, a lob threat. He's doing everything that Clint Capella gave them. So it'll be interesting to see how much his minutes go down when Clint comes back, because he needs to be in the rotation.
Michael Wilbon, Chauncey Billups will have the call on this game tonight. Do you have any expectations there?
Chauncey?
Yes, I love hearing Chauncey, stay right there. I got your chair. I'm holding it down.
There you go. There you go. I just want to see what you say.
We upgraded your chair, Chauncey.
Rockets Nuggets coming up next.
Put some class in the
We'll
chair.
see y'all at the half. Right now, we'll send it out to Ryan
Chauncey.
Rucco and Chauncey Billups with the call.
At least he gets to stay at the crib.